Bees are some of the most fascinating and important animals in the world and are widely known for pollinating plants around the planet. Even though they play a vital role in our survival, not too many people know about the interesting chemistry that these insects use. You will learn all about the complex science behind bees on today's episode of Buzzing Beasts, the documentary. First, let's talk about the hive. The beehive has a large and complex social structure where there are three types of bees: the queen, the drones, and the worker bees. The queen is the leader of the hive and produces all the eggs. The drone's sole purpose is to reproduce with the queen. Arguably the most important type of bee, the worker bee's main purpose is to collect nectar and pollen from plants for the hive to create honey, the primary food source of bees. Nectar is a sweet liquid created by flowering plants to reward pollinators, including bees, for spreading their pollen to other plants. Nectar is what worker bees hope to find when leaving the hive and is made of three sugars: glucose, fructose, and sucrose. The majority of nectar is sucrose, in which each molecule contains 12 carbon atoms, 22 hydrogen atoms, and 11 oxygen atoms. Worker bees will collect the sweet nectar by drinking out of the stigma of the flower, where it will then be stored in the bee's stomach. What happens next is the important process of creating honey. In order to understand this process with more depth, we will use a up-and-coming, highly rendered software called Minecraft to inspect the bees more closely. Here we see a wild bee in its natural habitat, flying towards the sweet nectar of a flower. The bee drinks the nectar of the flower and covers itself in pollen to help the growth of other plants. Now, let's get a little closer. This is the inside of the bee's stomach. It's a little gross in here, but science is happening, so it's cool. As you may remember, nectar is primarily sucrose. Honey, which is used as a major food source for the bees, is mostly glucose and fructose. In order to create honey, a chemical reaction occurs. The sucrose from the nectar reacts with the water in the bee's stomach to create glucose and fructose. Along with this process, the honey also mixes with the natural proteins inside the bee. Isn't that just fantastic? After the honey is created, the bee takes it back to the hive and spits it back up to be stored for later. It might be a little gross, but honey is a rich source of food for bees, and this process is very efficient. But wait, you might be saying, how does the bee even know how to retrieve the honey in the first place? Bees can't even talk. Well, this is through the use of pheromones. Pheromones are chemical compounds that can be released by the queen and received by other bees to communicate. This can include things like mating, protecting the hive, and foraging. One of the most frequently released pheromones is called the queen mandibular pheromone, also known as QMP. Its molecular formula is C12H22O11 and is released from a small gland on the bee's head. When QMP is paired with other pheromones, it can tell bees a multitude of things to do. Here's a phenomenal example of what a queen bee using a pheromone on a drone bee might look like. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. I hope you learned about the important chemistry of bees, and see you in the next episode of Buzzing Beasts, the documentary.